Trump continues to crack down on China, and I am loving it every single time that I hear a story about Trump cracking down on China. This is Trump at his best. So we have this from the Washington Examiner. Trump administration rolls out new ban on Chinese imports made in concentration camps. And let's get into the article before I give too much commentary. I just think this is all the things that China has done. Why do we even do business with them? And I understand that we can't just pull the plug on them, but at some point, we've got to go full embargo on China. We have got to cripple them economically. We just got to figure out a way to do it where we bring a lot of manufacturing back here. So the Trump administration moved to block substantially more imports from the Xinjiang region of China, where approximately 1 million Uyghur Muslims are forced to manufacture goods in concentration camps, according to Homeland Security officials. Ken Cuccinelli, who performs the duties of the Department of Homeland Security Deputy Secretary, told reporters in a press call Monday afternoon that Customs and Border Protection officers who screen imports at ports of entry will block items made at any of 5 locations in China. The Chinese government claims that the sites are vocational sites. Vocational sites and training centers or workplace facilities. Right. That's kind of like how critical race theory is anti-racist. Meanwhile, it's engendering segregation and a reversal back to the Jim Crow era of racial politics in America. This is what's so frustrating about the left is, we are constantly trying to debate them on ideas that are reasonable and come from a certain foundation of values and principles, but they don't have any. And so they have zero constraints in arguing against anybody on the right. It is whatever they can come up with at the moment to counter. It doesn't matter whether it completely goes against something that they said, earlier in the conversation or anything that you can refute them on. It's absolutely asinine. So I'm going to use an example. This guy on Facebook that I kind of argue with sometimes. I don't know why I do it. It's just every once in a while you see something and you can't bite your lip. He posted this meme that says, and he was mocking tone here. We can't get rid of slavery. The economy will collapse. We can't get rid of child labor. The economy will collapse. We can't have 8-hour work days. The economy will collapse. What? The workers want 2 days off a week? Don't they know the economy will collapse? And then underneath it says, basically, if a capitalist says the economy will collapse because of a reform that will help workers, you don't need to believe them. It's going to collapse anyways. That's what it does under capitalism. Okay. So, of course, I just hopped on and I just said, meanwhile in China, ... And, of course, the guy starts defending China. And so, after going back and forth with the guy for a minute, he finally says, of course I'm not fine with these things listed here. Are you trying to say that because I realize that we need to trade with China to not reduce the quality of living in the U.S. that I am complicit and support those forms of work exploitation? I'm like, well, kinda, you are complicit. I buy as few Chinese goods as possible because I want to be as little complicit as possible. Now, I also understand that you can't completely divest yourself, as a citizen, you can't completely divest yourself from anything that comes from China because that's just impossible at this point. But the other thing that I wanted to say was, well, I didn't know you were such a nationalist. Yeah, yeah. Like the whole statement about, are you trying to say that we can't do business with China because we don't want to reduce our standard of living here? It was very, very revealing because all of a sudden he sounded not only like a nationalist, but a NIMBYer and a supporter of all the things, so long as it didn't happen here in America. And I'm just like, you guys have nothing that you actually believe in. You guys are just trying to counter anything that America stands for because you went to some indoctrinating school that told you America was bad and you never stopped to question the premise because you're fucking mentally lazy. I mean, it really just kind of becomes comical at some point where you just hear it's so easy to do. It's so easy to talk these lefties into making points against whatever point they were making earlier in the argument. Because they will never cede anything to you. They'll never say, okay, look, I understand that, and that's a good point. But how do we balance this and that? No, no, no. They're never going to balance anything. It's always going to be, how do I beat you? How do I win this? How do I get... When somebody attacks you like that, it's almost like that guy, you just munching on a burrito and you just lean to the side and they trip over your leg and they fall to the ground. What was that? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think Brad Pitt's character kind of had a scene like that. I don't know. We've seen those scenes in movies all the time. It's kind of a trope. But anyways, I'm off the subject here. So, back to the article. This is not a vocation center. It is a concentration camp. Yeah. Yeah. When you raid somebody's town, you take all the men, and then you have ethnic Han Chinese go and sleep with and impregnate their husbands while they go and forcibly work at a labor camp. Yeah. That's a concentration camp. And rape. But you know what? At least they let Disney film Mulan in the Xinjiang region. And we know that because Disney thanked the guards at these concentration camps for letting them film and being cooperative with them as they were filming near these concentration camps. I'm telling you, the left has no principles whatsoever. None. They are completely self-interested as long as it helps them get ahead, and they don't care who they step on, but, if it helps them to get ahead by claiming that we're the ones stepping on people, well, that's what they're going to do. Because they're always projecting everything that they do onto us. Constantly. So yes, they are concentration camps. A place where religious and ethnic minorities are subject to abuse and forced to work in heinous conditions with no recourse and no freedom. Yeah, I mean, we heard stories about the Foxconn Foxconn factories in China. I don't know whether those were in Xinjiang or where they were. Probably were in Xinjiang. I don't know. But they actually had to install nets around the roof of the building because there were so many employees that were just going up and jumping off and committing suicide because their life was nothing but being a slave. In fact, I wouldn't even be surprised to find out if the slavery was far worse than it ever was here in America. Would not surprise me at all, because to the Chinese Communist Party, they do not appreciate humanity. They view people as either inside the party or outside the party. And if you're outside the party, you're not a human being. You're just a commodity that you're just a cog used to produce for the party and for the party members. But that is communism, and again, I've got to do a little bit more research on fascism because I'm starting to get the sense that China is to call them communist is maybe not necessarily the most accurate because they seem to be a marriage. They seem to be the offspring of fascism and communism. It's like they took the most oppressive of both worlds and then made China out of it. Because it's certainly not communist for the party members. The party members get to do whatever the hell they want, essentially. They get to make millions. You can be a Chinese billionaire. You can't be a billionaire in a real communist country, unless you're like the top dog or one of the top people. But you don't have a billionaire or multimillionaire class without having sort of fascistic elements tied into your communism. So yeah, no recourse and no freedom, said Cuccinelli. This is modern-day slavery. President Trump has been very clear. The administration will not tolerate the egregious human rights violations that are taking place in China. And I really hope, and I partially believe, that Trump is trying to head us in a direction that allows us to be more self-sustaining without having to rely on China. And it's going to be a gradual thing. And I hope that once that's all said and done, once we are finally it might hurt a little bit, but we've got enough of our own base that we can just sever the cord from China, that he just picks up the phone and says, hey, all that debt of ours you bought up? Yeah, we're not paying that. Go fuck yourselves. Click. Charge it to the game. And that's why I also really, really, really want to see Trump revisit the idea of buying Greenland. Greenland, I think it's a bigger deal than it was made out at the time. I think because they are very rich in a lot of the rare earth minerals that we rely on China for. And so I think acquiring Greenland, and Denmark says Greenland's not for sale. Slow down, Denmark. We're America. If we want it, we'll buy it, or we'll take it. Whatever we got to do. There's like 50,000 people there. There's not many people at all. Sorry, I was just remembering the meme that Donald Trump posted when the Greenland thing was happening. He posted a meme that showed, Greenland, which is a very desolate land with a big golden Trump tower built on it, and he tweeted it out and said, "I promise I won't do this to you, Greenland." It was hilarious. But I do think that acquiring Greenland might be an important strategic step in severing our dependence on China, especially now that mining technology is getting to the point where they can get through some of the ice and actually get into some of the mines and get to access to some of the minerals in Greenland. I would love to see us continue exploring that. I'm no expert on it, so maybe I'm talking out of my ass. I don't know. But anyways, Greenland needs to have an American flag over it, if for any other reason than just because it should. So let's see. Illicit, inhumane, and exploitative practices of modern-day slavery will not be tolerated in the U.S. supply chain, says acting CBP Commissioner Mark Morgan. No, and it shouldn't be. And that's what the guy that I was talking about before that was making the arguments about, well, are you saying that because I realize that we have to keep trading with them that it makes us complicit? It's like, yeah, it does actually. And it makes me complicit too that I have some things that are built in China and that kind of thing. I very well could just go and say, screw it all, not buying anything, go off into the woods, chop down some trees, build a log cabin, and, not buy anything made outside of the United States. I could do that. But again, but at least I'm willing to acknowledge that, yes, that does make me in some form complicit, even no matter how reluctantly. But I still am not sitting here saying, well, we should continue to do it because we get things for the cheap here. So I would be more than willing to pay more for American-made goods, knowing that Americans were A, getting jobs, and B, that it was not benefiting the Chinese Communist Party. I would live lighter. I would downsize. I would do what I had to do because at the end of the day, sure, my quality of life is great, but we have very high quality of life here. No matter where you are in America, you have a high quality of life. But I think that would be worth it not to be complicit in all of the things that America stands against, especially when you count in the fact that the only reason that we are able to get things cheaply from China is because they have slave labor that allows them to undersell us on the market. The only reason we get cheap goods from China is because they have slavery. So that argument of, we should keep trading with them because we don't want to decrease the value of life here is completely disgusting when you look at it from such a way that justifies it. So, and I've had conversations with that guy before, and sometimes he seems a little bit more open, but man, the left just doesn't get it. They don't get it. They don't understand values. They don't understand principles because they have none. They're deconstructionists. All they do is take what we have built and try to take it apart and then just, leave it in pieces. They have nothing to rebuild out of it. Nothing but this Chinese type system where, a lot of the people who purport it think that they're going to be the ones in charge. Think that they're going to be the ones in the party. That they're going to be the ones that get to reap the benefits of it. It's not how it's going to work, and they also have no understanding of the American system and how it works anyways, or how it's intended to work, not necessarily always how it does work. Let's see. But yeah, so we don't want that stuff in the supply chain, because that is still our supply chain that is then being tainted by slave labor. So for those people and entities who traffic in these despicable practices, know that every CBP officer who reviews cargo information is looking to keep these products out of the United States economy. Yeah, I like the decisiveness with which that is worded and the very forthrightness. The fact that this stuff is like using the terminology, practice modern day slavery will not be tolerated in our supply chain. Because I think that's a really interesting and direct and succinct way to put it, because it does draw attention to the fact that it's not out of sight, out of sight, out of mind. Just because it's out of sight doesn't mean it's not in everything that we own. I mean, I fear this microphone was probably built by a slave. Like it. That doesn't make me feel good. That makes me feel guilty. It makes me want to take this microphone and go chuck it. Of course, I don't know that for certain. I don't know where this was made, but still, you get the point that I'm making. And then also, keeping the products out of our economy, because when you phrase it like keeping the products out of the United States economy, it really creates that sense that even involving them in the supply chain taints our economy with those same practices. And it's a very visceral way to say it. So I think that was very, very well worded by Mark Morgan. So to date, in fiscal 2020, which began last October, the U.S. has imposed a dozen bans on imported goods, including 8 against Chinese entities. Federal law prohibits the importation of merchandise mined, manufactured, and produced in part or fully by convict labor, forced child labor, and indentured labor. I'm going to have to call a little bit of BS on that, because we have our own problem with convict labor. We have prison manufacturing systems here in America, which I think need to be done away with. We do have, and I guess it's in the Constitution that slavery is not illegal if it's in the confines of conviction or, somebody who is incarcerated. But if this is our standard for China, we need to be living up to it better here in America. And I am not for the prison labor system. That's not something that I agree with. We should not be taking people who, and you got to almost think that the war on drugs might have basically been a way to recruit, or, not to recruit, but to force slave labor here in the United States in our prison systems. That's just me speculating. I don't have any proof or research on that or really anything like that, but that stuff needs to end here in America too. The United States estimates 1 million Uyghur Muslims have been detained in labor camps. China is the world's largest exporter of cotton, which most of which comes from Xinjiang. It had to be cotton. What is it with cotton and having to be picked by slaves? What is it? God. Alright, anyways, guys, that's the video. Go ahead and hit the like button if you like this video. Go ahead and share this video if you like this video. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you like this video. And also, don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Parler at Ram Thorburn. Also, there are links to my Subscribestar, Patreon, and PayPal down in the description below if you are interested in donating and helping me keep this channel alive. I actually could use a new webcam because I still have the same one that was faulting on me over the weekend here. But anyways, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.